of experiencing this world. Every morning, every evening, every day, every moment is a privilege. We get to play among the material while keeping our consciousness in the eternal. Yeah, we've got physical bodies that act up sometimes and need certain things, but that's part of our play. We get to see what this does to our body, what that does to our body, but we are not our body. We are our consciousness. Now, some of you might be wondering how I came up with Mind the Gap as a title. And those of you who like PBS know that that's an English term that they say mind the gap. In other words, pay attention to this space. And yeah, I'm guilty of trying to multitask and do things while the television is on. And mind the gap is telling you, watch out for this possible impediment. Now we know that because consciousness is what drives our lives. What we pay attention to is what we are manifesting. So we know that God is our life and God is over all and yeah. But we want to make it real at every moment, on every level. We talked before about our beliefs and how we act and how they don't always follow one another. We all come together and we say that God is all there is, all powerful in our life, and we know this. But then when we get in conversation with someone else and people say, oh, so-and-so is terrible and we've got to do such and such, and we nod our head, what are we agreeing to? If we know that God in us is the whole power, all the power, not just a little slice in you, 1/7 billionth embodied in you, but all the power. It matters what you believe. It doesn't take all 7 billion of us to agree to make a change. It can start with you. It can start with you. It can start with me. It doesn't take 7 billion to be on the same page. Because let's face it, there's a reason to have 7 billion different individuals on the planet. Would you really like a planet of 7 billion of you? It'd be a little boring if it was all the same, right? This is a world experiencing change and manipulating matter and time. That's what these physical bodies do. We move through space and time as if it were a real thing. But we know that when you get to the absolute, when you get to the level of the eternal, it's all God. It doesn't sometimes be God or a little bit be God. It's all God. It's all balanced. It's all for the good. It all fits together. It's a whole, complete. And it's not an entity. God is not a personality or a person or a thing. God is all there is. And that's far more than what we can see. When we meditate inside, it seems like the inside is bigger than when you open your eyes, right? Because you've got that vastness in you. When you think of time and space and all the power that God really is, it's more than what your little physical body can hold. That's the truth of you. So, when we affirm what we believe, part of being in this physical milieu is living it, speaking it, being it. Even if you locked yourself in your home space and didn't interact with anyone, you still must live from the fullness that you know. Your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings about things that are going on, who's in charge? Why do we get upset with our politicians or the economy or whatever industry we're upset with? God's in charge. If we really know that the eternal is what powers everything, then we're on a secure footing. We don't need to worry about anything. Our job is to remain aligned with this life. It's the life of God. And this life is our life, right now, not tomorrow, not before, right now, because now is all you have. Now you get another now later on, maybe. Your consciousness might totally shift and you go totally eternal to the point where you've already ascended. I don't know when that's going to happen for you or me. But right now, while we're here on this planet, we have the responsibility, the ability to respond, knowing the truth. And the truth that God is the ruler of all, the foundation of all, the reason for all, the energy of all. So if our bodies decide to act like something is out of order, that's our bodies. Because remember, your body is a reflection of the past. You ate before, those nourished your body and made cells and blood and all of that good stuff. So your body is a reflection of the past. It's not necessarily showing what you are today, what you are growing into. Because we're all growing into a greater awareness of what really is. Isn't that why we're on the planet? To realize, make real in our eyes, the truth. So if the body is in the process of releasing something from the past, we don't worry about it. Why worry? Who's the power? God. So there's no reason to worry about it. We do what we are led to do. I might be led to take apple cider vinegar and honey. So if I'm led to do that, I do that. And I expect, by the power of what led me to that, for it to have a positive outcome. I don't worry about it, but I follow the guidance that is given me. And we each have that perfect alignment, that perfect inlet for this divine guidance. It may tell you just to sleep. It may lead you to pick up a certain book and read it. But whatever you need, you will be led to do that. It's up to you to mind the gap and take from where you are into that realization of the God self that you really are. Now, there's nothing wrong with having that gap. I mean, many things are built intentionally with a gap, or else we couldn't move out in this particular material world, because this world, things are interacting. So part of what we're doing is interacting with other people. And they may not have the same understanding of God that you do. So there's a gap between your consciousness and their consciousness. But that's okay. Part of our job is to be what we know, and that helps them with their gap. That's part of why we're here, to help each other, to nurture one another. Now, we don't judge just because that door needs a gap for it to open and close. That doesn't make that gap a bad thing. The gap is. And we simply accept that as part of this particular reality. We don't judge it. We let it do what it is there to do, but we know what we are here to do. We are here to embody God in the highest possible way that we know how, and remain open to remove our gap until we're in total alignment with this all that is power that is living through us. We don't mind someone else's gap. We work on ourselves. If I'm talking to someone and I realize that something they say has an emotional charge, I get a little upset, that's me. That's not them. I work on myself and deal with what it is in me that decided to judge and be upset. Because for me to be upset, I have to have gotten off of the realization that God is all there is and all is well. We affirm this all the time. But affirming it on Sunday or once in a while during the week is not the same as living it 24/7. And that's what we're about. We don't worry about anything really, but we concern ourselves with where others are in consciousness. That's their business. We mind our own spiritual business. But we see in ourselves where our emotions and our thoughts don't conform with the truth we know. That's our job. Our job is to be in constant communication with that God within, and making sure that if there are any parts that have passed garbage, for want of a better word, but let's say the signal was interfered with, had a little static on it. then we correct that. We don't get mad at ourselves because we're human and we bought into the story of being, I'm just a human. What is just a human? A perfect expression of God. So there's no just in there except that it is just that we are that. It is a privilege to be on this planet. This is where we can make a difference in this material world. So it's not a dreary world of sorrows and we can't wait till we get to heaven. No. Heaven is a state of mind, a state of consciousness that you can have right now. You don't have to wait. It's not something after you die. Heaven is what you can create right here. Heaven is being totally aware and aligned with that God that is you. That God that is you. No, God is not something far off. God is right here with you as you, uniquely. There's never been a manifestation of God like you, and there never will be again. Even if you want to get into the thing about multiple dimensions and stuff, that dimension's you. You here in this world are unique and special. There are things that only you, with your consciousness, can do and be and manifest. So it is up to us to, for want of a better word, monitor, but be aware of where our actions and thoughts are not in line with that truth of God. If I'm thinking I'm just a little me, I've negated some of that God power in me. If I realize that I am a true expression of the God within, then there is no little me. What does he say? The Father within, he doeth the work. If you're truly in touch with that power within you, there is no can't do it. You may want to do it, don't want to do it, don't like to do it, but there's no can't. Because the Father within does the work. And that Father is within all of us. We are all totally connected to this eternal power. And this power loves us. Now you know what love is. I don't care what you've experienced. You know what love is. And we're not talking about love as a human being loves. We're talking about the love that knows you inside and out even better than you know yourself and doesn't care about any of it. It just loves you completely, totally, unbounded, no judgment. There is no big permanent record where all your sins are being written down and it's going to be held against you at Judgment Day. God loves you. God is love. So God in you is love. So when you get to the heart of the matter, when you get into where you really are, when you let go of things that this personality has experienced or things that the media, the society tells us, you are love. That's your essence. When you relax and let go of all of that, what remains is love. You don't have to like what someone else is doing. You don't have to approve of their actions. It's not about that. They are an expression of God. And therefore, if you love God, you love them. If you know God, you love them. It is our job, and what a wonderful job it is, to mind that gap, to let go of what our physical human eyes may perceive and realize this real truth, that God is here in and as us, and we are that God stuff, and we can release that now in everything we say and do and think and feel. We have no handicaps, we have no limitations. God doesn't have any, so therefore, why would that be us? We find ourselves where we are to do this. I don't care if you're sitting on top of the Empire State Building, you still have a responsibility to think and feel and be God. You can be buried in the lowest pit. That's still your responsibility. These circumstances don't make a difference. God is still there at the center of you, and all of the power, the love, the peace, the joy that God is you. And you have access to it. There are no prerequisites. That's why we have a consciousness, because our consciousness is what opens to release all this essence of God. Our consciousness is the tool that we use to work in our world. As we look about and we see things that perhaps we think need correcting, we don't get mad or upset. Yeah, it's a leak. We take our energy to be glad that we can perceive that. It's minding the gap. And take our energy to say, how can I respond to what I have perceived? No judgment, no energy. Because everything is in divine order. We don't have to be upset. Everything is in divine order, whether we like it or not, whether we approve of it or not. God does what God does perfectly. And if it came into our consciousness, that means that we have a responsibility to deal with it in some way. Now, it may be in terms of working with someone else. It may be ours personally to deal with. If we pay attention to what's going on within, then we can respond. But there's no judgment or weight on it. It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be on this plane with a physical body with which to manipulate this physical world. And so we go forth with joy, knowing that we are already capable for anything that we will encounter. That the things that come into our consciousness are coming because we can deal with them, or else they would not come to us. So minding the gap doesn't mean I mind it. It means I pay attention. I pay attention to what's going on. And I douse it with the love that I am. And let that clear away anything that keeps me from seeing clearly. And I use that energy to do what I'm here to do. This is a privilege. All the stuff that we said take that out of it and let that energy lift you up. And realize that you've got it in your mind because you can make a difference for the gap, what's on either side of the gap, and what will come in the future. You are supremely equipped to be the face of God in this world. And I give thanks for you. Namaste.